Continuing where we left off, what I'm now going to do is I'm going to show the effort involved and some of the tools we have available to us in order to control this configured structure that we've created in order to support a now new option, which is going to increase the number of combinations from 100 to 125. And I'm going to do that both in terms of this group method, because we're going to have to clone and own some of these groups in order to support a new option that's available to us. And I'm also going to show this with the configured method and how much easier it is when we're dealing with a configured structure where we now have a new option here as well. One other thing that I've done here that I did not do in my initial video because it was not really related to what exactly I was trying to show was I now have connected the evolution effectivity to all of the children in the configured structures. And if you recall from last time, we have two configured structures. One is the new smaller footprint configured way, and the other one is the larger footprint group way that gets you to the same result. And in both cases, I've got these current evolution as showing that these are active from version A of our model, and the less than sign is signifying onward into the future or to infinity is how many people describe that. So we're going to do this time with a change, and we're going to evolve this model to now support a new option. And we're going to show how we can add new items to both the group method as well as the configured method, and we can compare and contrast them once again. First things first, we have to do work on the model in order to support this, and I'm going to show that now. Going back to the model, we currently have revision A, and we're supporting the 5 different countries, 5 different cone colors, and we're supporting only 4 of the voltages. That gives us the 5 times 5 times 4, 100 configurations. If we look at the enterprise variability, on the voltage, we're going to see that the voltage does have there we go. The voltage has a 5th item that's already available to it. We just have in revision A, we were only supporting the first 4. So from a configured to order perspective, we were not offering the 90 volts. But now in our scenario, we're going to want to support the 90 volt option. Enterprise-wide, that is available to us. It's just not currently available in the model version that we have. We only have the 4. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and I'm going to create a new revision. Currently there's only revision A. I'm going to make a new revision, and this is what's going to be used in order to support this new configuration option or variant value that's going to be available to us. So now you see that's going to show up on the revision graph. It's a revision, so it shows it just as a dot with a connection to it. And right from there, we can now open that, get into this, and once again, we're going to see that voltage. And now by going into the information area, we can see that this is not phantom. We don't have 90 volts. So now for revision B, we're going to do what's called allocate or add in, and that's now going to be available to us as a configuration option. So now we're going to make 2 different things that we're going to modify here, all related to that voltage. And one is going to be related to voltage. The other one is going to be related to the fact that we've now made this change. So now inside of our product structure, we're going to have new groups that were not available for revision A, so they're going to have a different effectivity. And we're going to have, of course, those new groups being connected with different model versions or different variance because we're now going to connect a new cylinder in order to support the 90 volt option. So it's a white cylinder that's going to be the one that's going to be for the 90 volt option. The first thing I'm going to do, and I'm choosing not to do this with change, I'm just going to create the new groups that we need to have inside of our structure. And I'm going to show you a nice tool that will enable us to do this. If you recall our spreadsheet, the spreadsheet has all of the different ways that you can approach the different values. And if we look at this, we can take and filter for one of these, for example, the voltage, 60 volt voltage. And that gives us a pattern that looks like this, where if I were to clone all of the ones, and this is clone and own, if I clone all of those and then do a replacement of the blue cylinder with the white cylinder, I will then have a series of new groups that have that white cylinder in place, and you'll see a 5 in that column. And if we look at the max spreadsheet about what we've already done, we already have this with that same pattern. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the groups only with 4, and we're going to duplicate them and create 1 through 101 through 125, and we're going to swap out those components. And that's all we're going to do for starters. In the next portion of the video, I'm going to capture how we're going to add that into the configured structure with change so that it's related to Rev B, and then set the effectivity again. So let's go about this now. One of the neat tools that we can use here is in the configuration menu, there's this option called Select by Configuration Criteria. And I don't have to go and know which one of these would be selected when I pick that 60 volt option. I can use this tool in order to accomplish that, and you'll see it'll automatically select those for me. So I'm going to go here, takes a second while that comes up. We don't need the 3D for now. I'm going to look at that 60 volt option, and when I say apply, it's going to automatically select them for me, which is quite nice. And of course 25 is the right number because we've got 5 by 5 of the others. And now those have been selected automatically. I can go directly into the duplication and make these changes, with 4 becoming 101, 8 becoming 102, 12 becoming 103, and so on and so forth. So now we're going to follow very similar pattern to what we did in the previous video. We're going to do a duplicate. We are going to do it with advanced. Takes a second because it's quite a few objects, and you can imagine this would be growing more and more as you add more and more options as necessary to support your business. And now it looks like it put it in the reverse order, which is not a big deal. We want to reuse everything because we're going to do the replacement of that blue cylinder with the white cylinder after the fact. There's no way to do that here. And now we're going to go through and we're going to make our changes here. So this becomes 101, 102, and so on and so forth. Halfway there or so. Almost there. 5 more or so. And the last one. And that is about it. We're going to now duplicate. We've got the numbers set. Now we're going to go and create that. I am not changing the video to speed it up in any way. I'm just going to let this go with whatever speed it does it, just so you get a really clear picture of how fast the performance is. It's pretty good. There we go. Duplicate is successful. And if we look down at the bottom, I'm going to minimize this. Now we've got those groups have been created, and I'm going to put them in order here to make this a little bit cleaner. There we go. And now if I were to do my trick of selecting them all and then doing a right mouse expand all, that saves me from having to click every one of them, which makes my life much easier. There we go. So now it's been expanded. And as we expected to see, we've got a blue cylinder in every single one of these. And what we're going to do is do that multi-select trick I showed from before. And we're going to replace in all of those the blue cylinder with the white cylinder. So let's select the blue cylinder in every one. We can do a control pick. Blue cylinder, blue cylinder. That was the wrong one. It's this one. It's usually the first, but sometimes it looks like it's giving me a different order. Blue cylinder, getting there. A little painful, it's manual work, and this is clearly taking a few minutes to do, but we've got pretty decent tools in order to approach doing that, which you can bring to bear if you want to stick with this methodology. And there we go. So now we've got, should be 25 of those selected. There we go. Looks good. Looks like we've got them all. Nope, missed one. Moving too quick. There we go. Looks like we have them all. Now we can go and do a mass replace by just saying replace by existing. And we want that BCC underscore cylinder. We'll do a search. And it's going to find that for me with the index search. First time I've searched, so it's going to bring that up. And now we've got the BCC cylinder, and we're going to do the white one, which is what our spreadsheet said we wanted to use as the 90 volts. So now we've got that. We're going to say OK, and it's going to go and do a mass replace. And because we're doing that right within the structures, we did a duplicate of the structures that were there. All of the positioning relative to each other is going to be correct. And there we've got success. It did that pretty quickly, even faster than I thought, really. And that now has 25. That's the number that we expected to see. If it would have been different, it would have been something that would have been a bit of a worry. And now what we've got is all of these new items that we're now ready to add into the group structure, but we want to have that be revision B in order to approach that. And I'm going to choose to demonstrate that to you with a change action. So we'll take a pause here, and then I'm going to get that going. All right, now we've added all these items into our, made new groups for them to support what we need to do. Now we want to add that back into our structure in order to support that. And ideally, the way this is going to work is that this item would have been released on a change, because it, not released, but it would be locked for change. And we can manually turn that on or off using this, which would then prevent anything from happening within that which could possibly break things that we've sold to other customers and so on. We want that to be locked in for change required. Now, anything within that structure, if I were to say, let's go and just detach this or remove it from the structure, it's going to tell me I don't have authorization to do that because I do not have change control. So I need to get authorization to make this change, and I want the system to automatically take care of for me the fact that the ones that I add get related to revision B of the model version. So this is where the effectivity is coming in order to approach that. This also works with modifications to these as well, but I'll show that as a later video to demonstrate how that works. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go and create a new change action. There we go. Inside of here, what I'm going to do is create a new change action. And I'm going to call this add 90 volts rev B. And we will create it. By default, it's going to show up in draft mode. So we can now do all of the setups that we want to be able to do. Members, normally this is where the person that's managing the change would assign the assignee who's going to do the work and who's going to be doing approving it, even adding informed users if you want. The approver or the assignees can be user groups or they can be route templates that are multi-step approvals in order to get this overall change to be completed. In this case, I'm going to hard code this to be that I'm the approver and I am the assignee as well, because I'm going to be doing the work and I'm going to be approving it, something that we normally would not have the people doing like this. It would normally be blocked out, but that's what we're going to do just as a demonstration purpose. The other thing that I want to do is to show how proposed changes work when you're working on a configured structure, because it is different. I'm going to go back to my product structure editor. I'm going to grab that configured node and I'm going to drag and drop that into my proposed changes to see what that would do. Now normally, because this item is in work, we normally would expect that a change would be doing the job of releasing the item. But releasing a configured structure makes no sense. So if we look at the proposed change, it is really just modify. It is not release or anything else because it knows that it is a configured object. There's nothing to do here. This is just more of the context of what it is that we're going to be modifying. The other thing that I want to do is to point your attention to something called applicability. This is what's going to allow the system to keep track of the configured evolution relative to the new model version that we created. What I'm going to do is I'm going to select on the applicability. By default, there could be many different models this relates to, but we're going to go back and we're going to find our BCC model. And it's going to now relate to that BCC model. There it is. There's the model. So I'm going to select that. That's the one that we created earlier, the new Rev B for. And now we haven't set it yet, but what we're going to set it for is to be for Rev B to infinity. So anything we add into the structure will be for Rev B and onward. Anything that is removed or replaced in the structure would then be capped at Rev B automatically by the system, simply by the user just doing their job of adding, removing, or replacing. I'll show more examples of that in a follow-on video. But that is how you would set that up for configured evolution, so that we'll have authorization to make that change, and we will have the ability to have that automatically set the effectivity for us inside of the structure. Realize changes, we have not done anything yet, so that's really irrelevant. And one other thing that I want to do here is to show how you can add filters to this for how you would approach things. So I'm going to also go into the attachments area, and we currently don't have any, but what I want is to have attachments that give me a filtered view of this structure, because in this example it's maybe not so important yet, but what we can do is, and I'm just going to bring this back up, we want the user to be able to work in a very natural state, and there's really no reason for them to be burdened with the max case. Like they do with clone and own, you're creating a structure and then you add, remove, and replace. The filter allows us to do that, and this is a unique aspect of how the data-oriented configure structures work. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to bring that group structure back in. I just got rid of those other ones for now. There we go. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a couple of filters for this. I'm going to select it and go into filter, and I'm going to create configuration filters and save them for what it looks like in its before state and what it needs to be looking like after. Now, the first one I'm going to create is what I want the evolution to be is at Rev A. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this to Rev A. So now I see the expression for the model version is only A, not A and B or. So it's just A. And as far as variance and values, I want to consider all of them. I don't want to have it be, I have to select them for this. I want them to be for all of them. And then I'm going to apply it. I'm in authoring mode. Let me turn that off and apply it. And of course, that's going to look no different than what it was before. I've got all of the different 100 items that were there. And that's important because that is the starting point that I'm going to be working with. What I'm going to do is I'm going to save this. I'm going to call this one, it's going to be BCC Rev A filter. And I'm going to save it. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create and edit this filter. And I want another one now that is for Rev B. But in order to do it in its reviewed state, we've got Rev B, I want to know the projected view of it, which is the projected view is what it will look like if all of the ongoing changes are approved. And you'll see how this was more important later. And once again, I want this to be considering all of the variants. Now, this is going to be an interesting piece here. Now, if I apply this, notice there is no difference. I haven't made any changes yet. So what's projected for Rev B and what A looks like, until I make any modifications, there is nothing for me to do. So this is a very important thing, because what this tells you is that everything inside the structure remains until something tells it that it's no longer needed because it's being replaced or it's being straight up deleted. So in this case, it's a very useful thing because it shows how our system creates no duplication when we do this. So now that I've got that, I'm going to save this one as well. And I'm going to call this one BCC Rev B projected filter. There we go. And now I've got two filters that I can now include, and it'd be part of the process for how you communicate to people how they would do their work. I'm just going to add these filters in here. Here we go. And I can look at probably is pretty recent, so I can maybe find those two already here. There we go. There's my two filters. There we go. So now I've got filters that I can use in order to work with when I'm doing my configured change. Now I've got everything I like. I can now put this into work, which if this was assigned to somebody else, they would get a notification that says, hey, you've got some work to do. Here's the change. And then you can go and review all of the things that you need to do. There we go. Now, when I was in here before, I had no ability to make any modifications to this. I'll show that one more time really quick. For example, if I want to detach this or remove it from the structure, it's going to tell me once again, nope, you can't do that because this is locked for change. The key to working with this now is that I can now use the work under, which is going to, number one, give me authorization to make the change, and number two, it's going to record as I do things in order to make the modifications under control. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to go work under change action. I believe this is going to filter for me the ones that are related to me. These are the active ones that I've been made as an assignee to. There's my change. And then as I select that, you're going to see the hard hat is going to turn yellow, meaning that I am now working, and it gives you a tooltip to know what it is that you're working on, which is going to be this change that we're working on. Now, everything else from here, oh, what I'm going to do is, let me one more thing. I don't want to work in the structure as it is. I want to work with the filter for Rev A. There's no reason for me to see the max case in all of the things that are there as it's grown over time. I can just work with the filtered structure. Here we go. And as I said before, the filter, because we're still on Rev A, this has everything that we did before. There's really no difference. There's been nothing filtered in or out because it's for Rev A. But as you're working on things with a configured approach over time, you might have many things in the structure that were filtered out by many revisions ago. And there's no reason to ever be burdened with those, and the filter gives you that result. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go, and now that I can work under change, I can make the modifications. I don't want to detach that, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to go add some existing products, which I believe is this button here. There we go. And we should be able to find our 101 through 124, which should be all of these. And I'm going to do this one more time just to make my life easier. I'm going to do it with a ECC underscore G1 star because I know all but 100 are there. There we go. And so I want 26 results, makes sense. I want them all except for 100 because that one's already there. So that's going to make it easier for me to plop that in. And now it's going to let me do that because I have the change. And we're going to see what this does to the evolution. The more to add, the more work to do. And as you're going to see when we get down to the configured result that does the same thing, we're going to see it's much, much, much simpler. But I'm showing you how this works and some of the potential benefits that you can get from switching to a new way while keeping the lights on with what you do today with an older methodology. There we go. Excellent. And as we can see, this now has gotten a lot bigger. It will be once this is done. Oh, and the reason why it's not showing is because of the filter. So we're going to be able to make a change in this. Now that we've done that, we can see this with the max case now. So we've added that in. Let's turn that off for a second. And let's Let's look at this for the Rev B, and we could just bring the other filter up if we like. And we'll look at projected. And there's our new groups have been placed in there, which this filter will allow us to work in. Now let's take a look in here about what is happening behind the scenes. We're going to look at this in a couple different ways. The first one is, let me put this in order, there we go. Notice that the current evolution is now no longer a static thing. It is related to the change action. What this means is that the addition of these items are not real. The system is keeping track of them for us, but it's pending anything related to this change. If this is a mistake, you could look at this just as a markup that we say, nope, I didn't want to do that at all, and you can remove it and all of this goes away. But here, we've got it related to that. So that's the current evolution. I'm going to turn on another one, which is called projected evolution, and I'm going to bring that up to the top. And we'll put it right next to, we'll put it right next to the current evolution. And there you can see what's projected to happen. So what's projected is that the effectivity will start only at revision B and never be included in revision A in any of their filters. So that is a really important aspect of it. So that's the view from the configured structure. And if we look at it from the change itself, and we do a refresh on this to see the realized changes, what we're going to see here is that inside that configured structure, we have added the usage. So the system is keeping track of the addition of these items. And this would hold true whether it's an addition, a subtraction, or a configured replace. It all would work the same way. The system is going to keep track of all of this for us. And we'll come back to that in a little bit. So now let's go back here. The other thing that we want to do here, we're going to turn this change back on because again, it's not going to let us do anything until we have it. We're going to set the effectivities on this based off of our variant options. And this gets back to what we had in that spreadsheet. So now what we're going to want to do is we're going to set the effectivities so that they are like this. And we have the same sort of pattern that we've seen before, except now it's going to be with the 90 volt option. So let's go and give that a shot. We've got them selected. There they are. And now we can go into our configuration tab. We can select the variant and option effectivity button. Takes a minute for that to come up. You get quite a bit of items to happen at once. And this did not put them in the right order, which is going to make this a little bit more challenging. But now we can see that the 90 volt option is available to us. And now we're just going to turn all of those on. And now we can go through this process of making the changes that we need to here. So 101, I've got the spreadsheet up on my right. And although this is a manual process, it is relatively fast because it's just clicking buttons on the structure here. So it's going to be 115, so it's going to be, okay, so this is going to be, we know for a fact that we are going to have 90 volt voltage for all of them, so we can do that one right now and get them all out of the way. Because we know all of them have already gotten that white cylinder that we put in there. So that's pretty straightforward to do. There we go. So we've got that part of the rule already written. And now 101 through 105 are going to be the default cone color. So cone default for 101 through 105. So I can do that. Unfortunately, this is spread around a little bit. And we've got one more to get, which is our 103. There it is at the top. Okay, good. And then we've got the 106 through 110 is going to be red. 106 through 110. Here's 106. Bring that over a little bit. 106 is going to be red. 107 is going to be red. 108. And 109. And 110. Where are you, 110? There you are, good. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go and finish the rest of this because this is boring. And all I'm going to do is just go through this spreadsheet in order to accomplish that. And I'll probably just speed up the video, but I'm going to finish this up quickly and then we can get back to business. All right, there we go. I finished it. You can see I've got 3 rules for each of them. There's 2 ands in every one. I've got that filled out. Took me a couple minutes to do that. Not too bad, but did what it did. Now I just apply and close, and this is going to allow me to finish this overall answer here. So it's now going to set all of those effectivities, and now I've grown this structure, at least proposed growing this structure. There we go. There's all the rules that got filled in. This would not allow me to do that without work under, but now I've got that in place. And so now this allows me to then go ahead and, if I'm happy with what I've done, to take the change and to put this into review. So now we can refresh this one more time so you can see the additional changes that have occurred. There we go. And now we've got the usage and the variant modification captured inside of here. So all of those are proposed, none of them are real until this gets done. And I don't have to worry about freezing anything because I chose to do the groups outside of that. Normally that probably would have happened within this change, but once again, I'm trying to illustrate something specific here. So now what I can do is I can now put this into approval, which now the approver is going to get notified that this is now something that I want you to review. It'll take a second while it goes and processes all of that and lets us know what's happening. Notifications will go out and so on. There we go. And I got a notification that because I'm the approver, I got assigned a task, which I can then go handle next. So the next thing I'm going to show is a little bit of review using the filters that we had already created here. And we're going to compare them so that we can see, did I do this change the right way? I'm going to do a quick review now of this change because it's now been in approval, and under approvals I've been asked to review this change. So I can go in and I can look at the realized changes. Gives me a textual accounting. Okay, it looks like that's what we wanted to do as a part of this. That's great. The other thing I can do is I can go into my attachments, and then based off of those I can take a look to make sure that the revision A was giving me the right answer back to what it was before, because we can't mess up the past. That has to be lock solid in our release. And there we go. There's our structure. It's already filtered, but notice it's not going to have any of the new items that we put in there because they are not there as a part of Rev A. They did not pass through this evolution criteria. And now I can go and refine this a little bit further just to make sure that my configuration stuff worked as it did before. I will go in here and make a modification now to selecting. I'm no longer going to want to look at all of the variants and options. And let's go in to make sure that this works the way we expect. Let's pick Mexico. We're going to have something green. The cone's going to be blue. And then the voltage, notice we don't have the 90 volts because that's not part of revision A. And now when we apply this, now we're going to see this is going to come up once it does its thing in the 3D. There we go. And now we only see the particular group that was selected. So that's exactly what we expected. Mexico gave us the green block. We've got the blue cone, and then the cylinder 60 volts gave us the blue looking cylinder as well in our example. So this is looking like exactly what we expected to see. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to back out of that. We'll clear this out so we can look at the next version. Let's see if Rev B is starting to look good. Once again, back to here because the saved filters is going to save a little bit of time. That's what people are going to be working with. So I'm going to bring that one in now. And this, once again, is looking at all of the possible variations. So now when we look at this one, now this list is going to be longer because now revision B projected to include these new items. Not official yet because we're still under change, and I'm reviewing to make sure that this gives the result that we want. Much like before, let's go in and now refine this filter to see what projected this would look like if we start selecting that new voltage option that we had before. And I just clicked that wrong because it's now going to give me a different look. I want to not consider all of them once again because I'm playing with this to make sure it gives us the right result. And we're going to switch right to voltage up. There's the 90 volts because we're in projected Rev B. And then we'll do a red cone, and country France or China will give us also a red item there as well, just to make sure that gives us what we want. We're going to select that and apply it. Going to give this a second to work. Let's make sure this gives us what we want. And sure enough, there we go with the single group has been selected. It's now one of the new ones we had. And we've got the red, red, white, exactly what the behavior that we wanted to see here. So perfect. I like what I see. Now I'm going to go and approve the change, which is as simple as going in here, going into my approvals. This now wants a comment. Looks good, great job, patting myself on the back, and I'm going to approve it. And then we're going to see what those results then look like. Informed users will be notified, people are involved, there we go, this has now been completed. So if we look at this, we now have the maturity state of the change has been completed. Once again, in the realized change, we see all of the items that we did, the new items that were added, the effectivity variant modification was changed for all of those. If we now go and look at the product structure, we can now refresh this. And this may take a second because we want to first of all turn the filter off. we were in a filter, so it assumed I wanted to modify that. And then we're going to bring everything back up, which is going to bring our max case up. And now we can look at the evolution of this, and now you'll see what has happened here. Now we've got the current evolution for these new items is all revision B to infinity, the less than sign. The older ones still have revision A, so they would be a part of that one, but now we've expanded it to include these new ones. And no longer does the current evolution include the change action. The current evolution and the projected evolution have now merged because we liked what we saw and we approved it. And now we can go through and just do one more quick check just for giggles. Not that there's anything we can do about it at this point. The change has been approved. But now we'll go in and we'll do a configuration filter for Rev B, official view this time, and let's select some items and make sure it works. And we'll do, once again, that new one. We'll do the blue cone, and we will do, I think France is also blue. Let's see if that looks correct. And we'll apply it. Here we go. There's blue, blue, white. Did exactly what we wanted. We got the group. It's group 119, which is a new one for Rev B. If we do this one more time and select something that we did not change for Rev A, this is the beauty of how this works. Let's make this for let's still stick with Rev B, but let's now pick one of the options that we know would have worked from Rev A and make sure that that still works as well. So we'll go with not the 90 volts, but any one of the others, and we'll do the blue France again. And this has to continue to work, and this is the beauty. We now support all of those configurations again. So it picks up that old group without having to do any clone and own in order to make it work. It knows that because Rev B meets the criteria of that evolution, it includes it, and we are good to go. So the next thing that I'm going to do in a video is I'm going to do the same thing again, but I'm going to do it with the configured approach and show how simple that is to get the same result. It's so simple, you'll be very surprised. I'll be back soon to finish that and complete this part 2 of this video. Okay, changing gears. We're going to do the same thing again that took us 45 minutes or so in order to support the extra 25 groups, in order to support those extra 25 configurations. We're going to do the same thing again, but we're going to do it with the configured approach with no groups. Let's get started. Going to remove that one from the product structure editor, and we're going to bring in our configured version, do a quick review of what we've got there. We've got the current evolution state for all of them. As I had mentioned before, I put those in as revision A onward to infinity. And we've got our variant or option, very simple rules to select the pieces. And we've got 14 of these because we are missing the white cylinder. We've only got 4 cylinders. We're missing the white cylinder, which would be connected with that extra voltage. And we're going to do this the same exact way as what we did before. We're going to deal with this from a change perspective. The work in the model has already been done. We already have Rev B. We already have the voltage of the 90 volts, so we don't have anything to do there. That part does not need to be replicated. We're going to do the same, use the same information that we had before. Now what we're going to do is go back and we will create a new change action, and we're going to call this one add 90 volts Rev B configured. Very similar approach. Good to have a little bit of repetition here. Under the proposed changes, let's start with members. I'm going to make myself the approver and the assignee. That would normally be other people, and that can be configured in the system to do that. We're going to take the now configured version. We're going to drag and drop that into the proposed change. There we go. And once again, that is not going to be for release, is what you would normally do, because the system knows it's configured. Then what we are going to do is to set the applicability just like we did before. We're going to add a new item, and we only want this to be applicable to the revision B of, there it is, B to infinity. When we make our changes, we want these changes to be for revision B. And we're going to do as before, we're just going to do an add, but this also applies if you're doing a remove or replace, but we're not doing that in this particular case. So now we've got applicability yes, which is great. And we are now going to go here, and we can get to work as soon as we put that change into in work mode. There we go. Now we are in work. That's going to allow us to include that as a change action. Just to show you another way to do this, this is the way I like to approach it. I can take that, I like to do drag and drop. It tends to be a little bit easier for me, a little bit less button clicks. I can drag and drop that in there, and that's another way to approach setting the authorizing context. There we go. And now you're going to see how absolutely simple this is to do. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take, since these cylinders are positioned, you can see it positioning there. I want them to be in the same position. I'm going to take one of these and I'm just going to copy it back into itself. So now I've got another instance of that inside the structure. That way I keep the same position. Now I can do my replace by existing. And I know this needs to be the BCC cylinder. And it's the white one. And there it is. There we go. Dead simple. Now that is in there. If we look at the effectivities, notice just like before, we've got the current evolution is only related to the change. Nothing is complete yet. It is purely a markup, so to speak. But the projected evolution, because of the applicability, is B to infinity. So I'm adding a new item to this, which is great. Now, how easy is it in order to support the configurations? All I need to do now is just to connect this white cylinder in the structure with the reason why that exists. So now simple rule. We will go in here. Oh, and we will add that it is the 90 volt. Just another view. Oops. I'm going to pick two of them just to make this. I like to see it on the screen with more options. Okay, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add 90 volt to the list. This one becomes the 90 volt. Apply and close. And just like that, I have now finished the work of supporting these configurations. I don't need to make any 25 groups. I don't need to make any complex rules. I just do one of them. That simple. And now if I go back to the filtering, I need to, there we go. And now it by default goes to Rev B. I want to look at the projected view because this is not official yet. And now I'm going to go and select my configuration, pick my options. There we go. And there's my voltage. Because it's Rev B, I've got 90. And we'll do green and green, which is also Mexico. And we will apply that change. And there we can see we already now support that configuration. No problem at all. All I had to do was add one simple item and set its configuration role. It is so easy, it's just magic. Now I can go and look at my change. And inside here, I can go into my configure change. And now you see how simple the change is. All we have, oh, that's proposed. Let's go into realized. All we did was add an item and then add its variant modification. That's it. Dead simple change in order to support that. Very, very easy. And now all I need to do in order to make this official is to put this into approval. There we go. Everything was in order. I can go into my approvals. I normally would go through and do that review like I did before, but this one is so simple. All it is adding that. Now I can just go give it a comment and approve it. And now that projected evolution will now coincide with the, done with this. So now the projected evolution and the current evolution for this cylinder one now have gone and merged, because it no longer is just something that is pending a change approval. It now is official because the change was approved. And just like that, we can play with our configuration again, and you'll see we can switch this to revision B. Official view is good. And now we can go in and make any one of these changes. And this time we're going to pick one that we know gives us an old configuration. So 30, we will do red and China, which gives us a bunch of red stuff. And just like that, we've got red, red, and the voltage 30 is going to be the green. Dead simple. So you can see now the difference in those changes and how that works. One last thing to show on this one has to do with what it's going to look like when manufacturing gets this change. So let's go to the configured view of the manufacturing items. And this is where there's some very important takeaways. There we go. Let's restore what we had before, because we'd already been doing work in this. The other beauty of having the dashboards is it's going to remember where we were. There we go. So there's our E-bomb. It's showing up here, and now we've got included in this list now becomes the white cylinder, and we already have some work that we did in order to build an existing M-bomb, where we put these into kits, if you recall. And now we can look at how simple this is from a manufacturing perspective. Because we added one item, all manufacturing has to do is worry about the one item that is not assigned. Everything else that we did, because we did not do clone and own, because we did this with a configured approach, there's only one item to deal with. Everything else sort of falls through to the next version. There's no duplication. This becomes dead simple to just say, I want to take this and drag that into there. And just like that, manufacturing can adjust the M-bomb to the E-bomb, supporting all of the different configurations that we had before. As before, any questions, please feel free to comment. I'd be interested in hearing any feedback you have, and thank you.